Okay, so in this training video, I'm going to show you how to make an image appear to be high dynamic range. Now, this isn't actually making the image high dynamic range. What we're going to be using is called a 3D bump map. And what that enables you to do is to create a lot more clarity and texture on the skin. And it gives the appearance of a high dynamic range portrait. So I'm going to get into it because it's really simple and easy to do, but it's really, really effective. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to duplicate the background. So a couple of ways you can do that. You can drag it down to the plus sign. I like just to press Command J, and what that does is just duplicate the background there. You can see it's got layer one there. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go up to filter, and then we're going to go to 3D, and we're going to click on generate normal map. So what this is going to do is generate a 3D sphere of the picture, and that will enable us to add this texture and blur. And you can see here that, so there's the image there behind. You can see it's like this blue sort of 3D color, and you can see that there's the face, there's the nose and the mouth and the eyes, and you can move this around and get a general idea. So this is the whole of the image in a sphere, and you can change that down here if you want to. So what we can do is we can change the detail scale. So we can move this down, and you'll see that the detail will be less, and we can also blur that. So we can push this higher, and this will actually blur the sphere. So if we bring these right down, you'll see that it will be, there we go. It's just it's completely blurred, all of it. So by increasing this detail scale, we start bringing back the detail, and you can see this starting to appear all around here. So if we carry on increasing it, you can see that eventually it will start coming back. And I've actually lost the face now. I'm not sure where I've put it. It's around here somewhere. I think it's around there. So what I'm going to do is actually push this all the way to 120%. Now you can add the blur. If you want to add a little bit of blur, you can. Now, if you're doing sort of, beauty work, portraits, then you might want to increase that. I tend to keep this at around 0.5 just because I don't want it to be blurred. I want the actual face to, have a lot more texture added to it. So you can see there, look. So if I press OK, that's now going to happen and apply that to the image. So once we've done that, we now need to desaturate this. So all we need to do is go to Image, Adjustment, Hue and Saturation, and then -100, and just say OK. So now we've done that, we need to invert this. So to do that, you just press Command or Control I, and that will invert the selection there. And then we need to change the blend mode to soft light. So we just scroll down to soft light. There we go. So that's the whole process. Now, once we've done that, we want to try and bring back some of the brightness, because that does end up darkening some of the image. So just come down to the new filter or adjustment layer. We're just going to come up to curves, select that. I'm going to click on the white. I'm just going to drag that in until I'm happy. So obviously we don't want to overexpose at all, but I think as it is, it's slightly dark. So I think somewhere around there. And if we come down to the bottom here, if we click on this, that is a clipping mask. So just by clicking that and then making the adjustment, what that means is that this curves adjustment is only happening to this layer underneath. Okay. So now we've done that, what we can do is duplicate this whole process. So in order to do that, we need to group these two together. So what you need to do is click on the curves, okay, hold down the shift key so you've got both selected there, and then press Control G to group them together. Okay. Now, if we duplicate that, we can right click and we can duplicate, or we can, the easiest way is just press Command J, and that will then duplicate that process. So once we've done that, we can then play around with the opacity. So we can bring this down and we can bring it up, okay, however we want. And you'll notice that the blend mode has now changed to pass through, which is automatic because of just what we've been doing. So that's fine. You don't need to worry about changing that. So that's looking pretty good. So if we then, with these two, actually group these together again. So again, holding the shift key, clicking there, and then pressing Control G to group them together. If we hold the Alt key down and click on this here, which is the layer mask, what that does by holding the Alt key down, you can see it's actually applied a negative mask. So what that enables us to do is now come to the brush tool and we can painting the effect that we've just created. So make sure it's on white. I'm going to bring the flow down to around 50%. We're on a hard, let's select a soft brush just to make it blend a little bit easier. So I'm going to make the brush bigger, and I'm doing that by using the bracket keys, or you can come up to here and you can change the size there. So now what I'm going to do is start painting this in. Now it's going to look a little bit darker, and that's because of the adjustments that we've made within the folders and the groups. Okay, so I'm just going to paint over, and even though at the minute it looks like we've been he's been beaten up, you'll see that this will have a really interesting and amazing effect, and especially with black and white imaging, because what we're doing is we're increasing the contrast, but we're also we're almost creating a 3D replica of the surface and the textures, and it's almost like it's double exposing it and putting it over the image. So what that gives us is a really really interesting detail within the highlights and the shadows. So I'm just painting that in. In fact, I'm going to move this up a lot higher. In fact, I'm going to go 100% and just paint that in. So what I'm going to do is avoid the eyes. I don't like to add this to the eyes because it can make them look really dark, but make sure we get the eyelids underneath. So the nose around here, you can see that, and the lips. Okay, he's got that's a natural color anyway because of the berries he was eating, so that's fine. Okay, so now we've done that, we can see on the mask there what we've actually done, and that has enabled us to just select the whole of the face. Now if we look at the before and after, yes, it's a little bit brighter, but what we've actually done is created, if I open this up here, open these groups up that we created, and again the way that I'm doing this within this group, you don't have to duplicate it. You could just do it as a single edit if you wanted to. If I take these away, you can kind of see what's actually happening when we do this bump. So it's a really interesting way of creating more texture. So now we've done that, we've kind of added that in within the shot. What I'm going to do is come down to the bottom here. Okay, I'm going to go to black and white. So this is a technique that I use on black and white portraits. So if I want people to look really a lot like a high dynamic, really gritty kind of urban look, so I would probably just bring the red down because there's a lot of red in his skin. We can look at the yellows as well. So this is probably making a lot more sense now, because you would have seen images like this on the internet and probably thought, how do they do that? It looks like high dynamic range, but in fact it's a 3D bump. That's what it's called. So we have a lot of control over this. Okay, so we can do that. We don't have to stop there. We can come down and create another curves adjustment, and we can click in the middle for the grays, so we could darken them. We can come to the darks, we can push them up or pull them down, which I think is probably going to be better. That's quite nice. And then I think to finish it off, let's create another curves adjustment, but let's push that really high. Okay, and then from there on this, let's press Control Command I to invert that using the brush tool again. So make sure we're on white, and then coming into the eyes, which I've been doing quite a lot recently, and just picking out the eyes there. Now I've just actually gone a little bit too much there. So what I'm going to do is come down to the flow, bring that down, make sure I'm back on white, and just pick up these parts here. Okay, and if you make a mistake, you can obviously bring that back in, and that'll be absolutely fine. So this is going to give your images that real gritty kind of look. So if we group all of them together now, so just holding Shift key, click on the first one all the way down to the bottom, Control G to group. That's everything now done. You can see the before and after, and obviously we're going to go from color to black and white, but it's showing you, you know, this kind of real high texture, almost high dynamic range image. Now, you don't have to do this in black and white. You can keep it in color by all means, but I like to have it in black and white because it is a real nice effect. You could also add, if you wanted to, you could, you know, continue editing this by all means. You can continue doing other stuff to it, adding bits and bobs, but I would then go to layer, flatten image, and that means then that we are finished. If you wanted to do this non-destructively, then you would just at the very start convert it to smart objects. Okay, and that's simple enough to do. You just go up to once you select the image up there, you just go up to the top here and click on convert for smart objects. So you just add that as a first step. Okay, again, you could add dust and scratches if you wanted to. You could add noise. Noise is quite nice because it's kind of, you know, going to give us a little bit of a grain look, so to speak. So we can add that, and again, you could bring that into Lightroom as well and carry on playing. So I hope that's helped, and that's how you create this real, you know, dramatic portraits when you see lots of detail within the sort of shadows and highlighted areas. So that's how you do it. So I look forward to seeing your images.